It's Friday here at GPFans and the Mexico Grand Prix is upon us. The altitude and heat of Mexico City could well cause problems for some of these teams, and how will those Mercedes engines hold up over the weekend? Red Bull finally topped the timing charts in FP2, but it was Mercedes that looked strong in the early session, while the two protagonists and team leaders, Toto Wolff and Christian Horner, continued their war of words away from the circuit. That's right, there's plenty to get into this Friday in the news and the recap of FP1 and 2. But before we go any further, just a reminder to hit the subscribe button down below. And of course, if you see anything over this weekend that you want us to break down on the GP Fans Stewards Room podcast, give us a tweet at GPFansGlobal and let us know, and we'll try and discuss it in the pod on Monday. But for now, let's get into all of the headlines and the action from Friday's session. Before the battle on track, the war of words between the two team principals of the title protagonists continued, as Christian Horner hit back at Toto Wolff's Hollywood Horner comments, calling the Mercedes leader a potential pantomime dame. The Red Bull team principal was responding, of course, to comments made by Wolff in the lead up to this weekend's Mexico Grand Prix, where the Austrian labelled Horner a protagonist in a pantomime after a season of jibes from both parties in front of the media. Asked for his response to the comments, Horner said, "We all know that Toto has a lot to say. I was quite flattered, actually, being called a protagonist. If you look at what the definition of that means, you also need an antagonist to have a protagonist, and one could say that perhaps Toto fills that role pretty well. If it were a pantomime, maybe a pantomime dame role might suit him. But it is all about what goes on track, and I think it is a great competition between the teams. It is no holds barred, pit wall against pit wall, driver against driver, engine supplier against engine supplier, and chassis against chassis. It is fantastic. We are loving it, and occasionally you are going to get some flack thrown at you, but I take it with a pinch of salt, and sometimes even as a compliment." Horner and Wolff have traded barbs all season long, and Red Bull as a team has endured plenty of sledging throughout its time in Formula 1, being branded as just an energy drinks company in its early years before more focused digs such as Wolff's windbag jibe towards Horner in Baku earlier this year. On the needle between the two, Horner insisted, "To be honest with you, as far as we are concerned, it is all noise. It all depends on what you do on the track, and if you can do your talking on the track, that has way more weight and value. Toto, he likes to throw in a comment here or there, and that is part of the needle, that is part of the sport, and he has got a lot at stake. He is going for an 8th World Championship with his driver, and we are going for a first with Max, and to add to the titles we have already won. It is pantomime season coming up anyway, so it is what it is." Yeah, I kind of like this almost comedic jibing between Horner and Toto Wolff at the moment. Some of it actually seems very good-natured and like they're just kind of enjoying it a bit. It also does feel perhaps they're just doing it to give us something to talk about as well. Let's talk about what happened on track on Friday at the Mexico Grand Prix in FP1 and FP2, as Sergio Perez recovered from a spin in FP1 to finish the first on-track session of this weekend's Mexico Grand Prix in 4th, 0.27 seconds off session leader Valtteri Bottas in his Mercedes. Perez's spin came in the early part of the opening session of his home Grand Prix as he exited the stadium section of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, causing damage to his rear wing, launching the Red Bull garage into a flurry of activity to repair the car in time to get him back out before the end of the session. And Checo wasn't the only driver to make a mistake in this session, as Ferrari's Charles Leclerc came a cropper in the same part of the circuit, with equally frustrating results for the Scuderia pit crew. Perez, though, was able to get back on track and stick his car behind teammate Max Verstappen, who finished the session in 3rd, behind the two silver arrows of title rival Lewis Hamilton and session leader Bottas. Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri was able to round out the top 5 with just 0.644 seconds separating the bunch. In FP2, track disruptions and late lockups caused problems for Lewis Hamilton in the early part of the session as he struggled to get a clear lap in on a very crowded circuit in Mexico City. Further down the grid, gearbox problems weighed heavy in George Russell and Nicholas Latifi's Williamses, before a slip at the end of the session for the latter added more frustration on the day, although Latifi's car didn't suffer any extra damage for his little trip off circuit. His teammate, on the other hand, failed to put him a lap time in FP2. But atop the leaderboard, it was Max Verstappen, over 0.4 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas in second and half a second of his title rival Hamilton. However, the Red Bull dominance in FP2 may be a little misleading, as pointed out by Karun Chanduk on the Sky Sports F1 broadcast, who noticed that Bottas' fastest lap on the soft tyre came on his 10th lap on that set of tyres, hinting that Mercedes are perhaps hiding some extra pace in the red stripe tyre. One to keep an eye on going into Saturday and of course Sunday's race. Sergio Perez, the hometown hero, finished FP2 in 4th again, but was setting the fastest times on the longer stints on the medium tyres, while Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari was able to bring his car home in 5th. Bad news for McLaren, as Danny Ricciardo suffered major gearbox frustrations and missed out on the majority of FP2. So are Mercedes hiding a little bit of extra va-va-voom in those soft tyres and a little bit more endurance in those soft tyres going into Saturday and Sunday's session? Or is the Red Bull dominance coming to fruition early on this weekend? We want to know your thoughts in the comments section as always, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our coverage of the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend.